saying as well.
Yes.
It's really important that you do what you say they should do, that people should do, that clients should do. And, having coffee with my husband of how many years? Oh, my gosh, we've been married. Gosh, it's been like almost 50 years we've known each other. So, yeah. So, and it's important to keep the relationships going as well, because once you're sleep deprived, your relationship with yourself and others suffer because you're not wanting to connect. You're more angry. You're less creative, less want to be around people. So that's why I share all that sort of stuff, because it's important.
I love it. Keep it up.
Yeah.
It helps me. And I was just having a conversation with someone recently about, social media and being in our field. And I said, I've seen so many people, coaches, mentors, leaders, therapists. And for me, there's always this expectation that if you're not up here, if you're not doing it, there's the insinuation that you're doing something wrong.
Yes.
And I'm much more like you of today was a bad day.
Yeah.
But this is a good moment.
Yes, exactly.
And I try to be as real and authentic as I can, because what I've noticed is, especially with COVID, if I'm not real and authentic, I'm going to get burnt out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I can't help anyone.
No, that's right. And it's really important that you take care of yourself, and everyone. Like, there's a lot of carers out there, a lot of mums and dads out there as well, that don't take care of themselves first. I hear people say, but that's selfish, but you have to build you up first. You have to take care of you first before you can take care of anybody else.
Yes. So where I would love to jump in a little bit of, some people, it's interesting when we talk about grief, how some people understand it, and some people, most of us have experienced it in one way or another. And some people don't know anything about it.
Yes. And that's why conversation is so important.
Yes.
Like the naturalness of conversation, because we're all going to experience death and loss. Every one of us, because we're breathing, we're going to die. And people don't like using the words either, because they like to soften it, as in, passed away, or, oh my gosh, so many people tell their children, grandma's sleeping. And it's like, and then children don't want to sleep because grandma went to sleep and didn't wake up. So, it's so important to know how to speak with people as well, and the different age groups. But it's, that's why it needs to be this natural conversation, because people don't understand it unless they've experienced it, and everybody's different in grief as well, because, just because, like, I've had both my parents die and a younger sister die, and there's 4 of us left now. So, but we've all experienced it differently. We can talk about, like different things that our parents did. And, but that, one of them, like my little brother, basically, he always says, no, I don't remember that. I go, yeah, but you were 8 years younger than me, mate. So, of course you don't remember. I'm telling you my memories.
Right. Bathe in my wisdom.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, but I think that's why, I want people to share stories. And I find that, women, especially, like miscarriage, is like this really personal grief that people don't get. And I've seen on social media some women saying, like it was a women's group, and somebody had talked about their miscarriage, and they asked the woman, how far were you? And she said, 6 weeks. Oh, well, like that's not grief. Just get over it. Like, live your life. And, you know, when I experienced my first miscarriage, my mother-in-law actually said, oh, well, at least, you know, you can fall pregnant now. And it's like, oh my God, how to shut somebody up.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that it's just so awful. That grief is like a really silent grief that people hold in.
Yes. And I have seen it too, where you're told you're allowed to grieve for a specific amount of time, like all these rules.
Yes.
Whether it's a miscarriage, or whether there was an issue at birth and they lose the baby, or whether it was a parent, you know, there are all these questions, like you're saying, how far along were you? And that helps the person determine how long you're allowed to grieve.
Exactly. Yes. Well, in miscarriage, you're not allowed to grieve at all, because at least, you know, you're pregnant, you can fall pregnant, and you probably will again. So that's the rule for miscarriage. But generally, we find straight after the funeral, people should get on with their lives. That's one rule. And then 3 months later, it's like, that's the other rule. You should just get on with your life. But the reality is, there's before grief and there's after, like before death and after. And that is your life forever. Like grief changes over the years as well. Like there's the shock and the horribleness, you know, the devastation when you first hear that somebody has died. So, and grief isn't only attached to death. It's like moving countries, moving homes, a friend not speaking to you, a pet dying.
Yes.
So, you know,
losing a job, a pandemic.
Yeah, losing a job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Marriage.
But I actually tend more to talk about death, because that's who my clients are, who I'm dealing with at the moment. And sometimes it's like 2 years ago, it was all about losing jobs and how, you know, how am I going to get on with life when you're in your 50s and 60s? And you'll never get a job again because you're not attractive to any employer. But grief goes on.
And it shows you how harsh the world can be when you're at your most vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah. And I sort of get my clients talking about, you know, what would it be like if somebody said, oh, well, get over it, you know. And I educate my clients to educate their friends and family, and just say, you know, there is no timeline, because sometimes I think, like, my thought is that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief really messed with the world, because they really think there's 5 stages.
Linear.
Been through it. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I'm angry. Yep. Tick. You know, it's like, no, it's like grief is, you know, it's
all of it, all at once.
Yeah. And it's all of it at once as well. People are shocked when I say, you know, you can be happy and sad at the same time. And excited and really, really upset at the same time, you know, because if your partner dies and they've been there for 20, 30 years, or 1 year, you come home to tell your partner about your day, and they're not there.
Right.
So there's the loss of a whole future.
Yes, and of not feeling alone.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's a hard piece that I see, where, you know, it's sometimes when I'm working with someone, or if I know someone who's dealing with grief, of sometimes just remember to breathe.
Yes.
Just that's all we need to do right now, is just breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, your body, people don't realize either that grief impacts your body and your mind, your whole life. It impacts everything. Like your immune system goes down. Grief is inflammation of your body. You're like, adrenaline's rushing through your body, and your brain is just telling your body to breathe. It goes into the flight, fright, or freeze. And it's like, you need to just breathe right now. And the best thing you could do with somebody who has just been told they've got a terminal illness or they've had somebody die is just sit there and listen and remind them to breathe as well. Because, it's crying happens a lot in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's really good advice of just being with them, because I tend to find a lot of the fixers.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Give me a task, tell me what to do so I can fix it and make you better. And
exactly.
In my own experiences too, I think sometimes I can be a fixer, not as bad as maybe I used to be, because I really learned what that's about. Yeah. But being able to take that breath and express of saying, no, it's just a bad day.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Just a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important as well. Yeah. 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 And I used to be the fixer, the control freak, the everything. I know what to do. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. Do it. And I'd get really angry with people for not following what I'd say. This isn't while I was a therapist, right?
Well, I think when you're dealing with grief or whatever, like people, and that's a disclaimer, well, aren't you a therapist or aren't you? It's like, that goes out the window.
I know. Yes, exactly.
Like, I'm human first, and this is painful. This is excruciating. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And not only am I going through this, whatever it might be, loss of a relationship, a job, a family member, the thing that I have found overwhelming is the questions.
Yes.
like you said, how long, how far, how tall, how big, how small, and it's
yep, exactly. Yeah.
it can be, but I think that those are our fixers. It comes from such a place of love.
Yeah. Yes,
that's right. How can I take your pain away? How can I take your pain away?
And that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really difficult to sit with somebody who's grieving, because you do want them to be, get back into life and let's live again, because they're so different to what they were before.
Yes.
So it's like, you really want them to get back to what they were. They're happy and living life amazingly. But,
And do you find people... I'm just thinking of different scenarios where sometimes, there's, a loss, and it's like, okay, there's peace involved here. There's this person's no longer suffering, or I know at the end of the tunnel, there'll be the light.
Yeah.
But then you have that scenario, but then you have the other scenario where resentments come up.
Yes.
And traumas and different things like that. So how do you address those different, because they're night and day.
Yeah, they are. But that's that person's experience of it. It's talking through, like, the resentment. Oh my gosh. Sometimes the resentment is really, really deep seated, and it's talking about what happened to them, because sometimes it's, a child caring for their parent who has had their parent, for years, which I did myself. I had my mum for a year. But resentment, okay, my mind is going away now. It's like talking about what they resent about the person, and could things have happened differently? Like, the more you know, the better you do as well. So it's a long process of finding, the deep-seated part of what is the resentment about. Is that what you're talking about, Patrick?
Yes, yeah. Perfectly.
Yeah. So, but it's also, if you're sitting listening to somebody as a friend or family member who is resentful of their mother, their father, brother, whoever their child, whoever they're caring for, sit and listen. That's their experience of it. Don't try to say, oh, but you could do this, or but, they did everything for you. You should be doing this for your parents.
Or they're dead now. We should respect the dead.
Oh, yes. I know.
I'm sorry. No.
Yes. I hear that so often. Oh, my gosh. No. They were a shithead alive. Now they are dead.
Yes. Death doesn't give them a free out of jail card.
No, that's right. No, not at all. I was really lucky, with my mum, because my mum was a horrible mum to me because she had a horrible dad to her. So she only knew how to treat the eldest child with, you have to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, you're not right, And we had this really weird, horrible relationship right up until she got dementia. And then it was amazing because she became this beautiful woman who thought I was the coffee lady. Only ever remembered my brothers, never me. I used to sit in front of her, like my youngest brother and I used to take mum to coffee, and she'd be sitting there calling my brother by name and then say, oh my gosh, I haven't seen Cait for years. What's wrong with her? And my brother would go, I don't know, Mum. She's just horrible. And they'd have this awful conversation between me.
That sounds like a brother thing to do.
I know. My brothers were awesome. They gave me such a thick skin, my brothers.
They motivated you for an amazing career.
Oh, yes, definitely. But my mum would have this awful conversation about me, both of them putting me down. And then she'd turn around to me, because I'd always sit in front of her, and she'd go, oh, hello, I'm so pleased to see you. And we'd have this wonderful conversation. And I really thank God for my mother's dementia, because I could have had a lot of resentment from that. But I had like 10 years of therapy before that as well, understanding, where she came from. So, but it was a lot of work, a lot of work. But yeah, so after my mother had died, it was a beautiful ending for her, like her and my relationship. It sort of made this wonderful understanding between us. And we actually had a really deep, real conversation when she was in a really lucid time that we should have had in 1986 about the death of our youngest twin. And it was just a beautiful conversation that I would have loved to have heard back then. But in her, her lucid time, she sort of went, oh, Cait, it's so, and she talked about it as if it was now. And it was 2013, 2014, something like that. Yeah. So that was just the most beautiful thing for me,
That's amazing.
Yeah. But to know Mum even thought that, she probably felt uncomfortable to say it back then. And, the conversation, because I had a live baby, it was all around the live baby, because that made me feel better. So, I think it was better for everybody else that they only talk about our live baby. So.
Right. In that, it invalidates the loss even more.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
And I think, what I've seen too is when someone's lost, especially a baby, I always encourage them. Like, I always tell me about that. Yeah. If you want to, like, bring it in. And I have to say, almost every time there's that deer in the headlight look.
Yes.
For a second, like, am I allowed to?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just takes my breath away, especially, being a man and having that conversation with a woman, I just think is a very sacred and very beautiful of just holding that space, and for the fathers as well. There's no judgment here. It's like this person is part of your family.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's bring them in.
Yeah. And you know what, Patrick? That's the best thing you could do, is tell me about them.
Yeah.
Anyone who says, my baby's died, Like, you know, I've had 6 children and I have 2 alive. It took me probably 20 years to be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And people, you know, the shock, always the question is, oh, hi, you know, when you don't know somebody, you're introduced, the small talk is, oh, hi, how are you? Are you married? Do you have children?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to just worry about that question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I answer that question? But now I'm okay with answering.
Yeah. And it's funny, what I find, I think that's a really good example when normal social conversations that normal, you know, we would be okay with, all of a sudden become those volcanoes of pain.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect description.
And I know for myself, when I'm dealing with grief, it's one of the things that helps me the most is prayer. Like I will say that God, I just need you, like, help just to breathe through this and to breathe.
Yeah, that's right.
And what I've learned, and luckily, you know, being able to tie from, you know, what I've learned is also take that minute. And in my mind, it's almost just like the sacred moment, the special moment where everything just sort of freezes.
Yeah.
And I just say, is my reaction right now about this question? Is it because this person, are they trying to hurt me? And you know, like that's what when you're grieving, that's what goes, like you ask that because you know.
Yes.
You know, it can borderline that paranoia of, you just asked me about this one thing in my life that's excruciating.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're just being kind and not knowing.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah. 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 And it's normal everyday conversation. And what I hear people say a lot is they should know. Like they should know what to do.
Yes.
I really expected them to know because they're my friend. They should know that I want to not talk, that I want to not see them, or I don't want their horrible food. You know, like you get food for the first couple of weeks, right?
Yes.
And then that stops.
Yes, that's just like, when I've experienced that, you know, with different things, of it's always interesting how other people deal with grief and loss.
Yeah.
And just somehow sometimes you just had to give a grain of salt of, okay, that's not really what I need.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that you care enough to be present.
Yes.
That this is what you gave me, or this is what you did, or this is how you reached out. And I find the other stuff is just the grief, and then it just washes away a little bit of like, okay, that's just pain.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like what you were saying at the beginning, when we're sleep deprived, when we're anxious, when we're our body's not in equilibrium, everything hurts more.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. 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 And it's so painful. And people in the real beginning of grief, often people are told that they're crazy and they have to come and see a professional.
Oh, I know.
And and they're really suffering with grief. You know, you expect, like, I expect to feel like that. I expect to feel horrible. Like if anything terrible happens, I expect to feel terrible. I expect to, you know, to try just to breathe, you know, the whole idea of remembering to breathe is so important then. But in general, in the general public, grieving is equated to being crazy. And it depends on how the person does it as well. Like
what's appropriate or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like my cousin, she won't worry. Won't mind me telling this story because everybody knows. And she will be watching.
I love it. I love it.
Cousin. Yeah.
There's a disclaimer. Just blame me, Cait. It's like that New Yorker Patrick, he just wouldn't leave me alone.
Exactly. Yes. But I mean, at her wedding, her mum died young. Her mum, she's going to hate me, 59 years old she was. And it was before her wedding. And so she laid a plate for her mum, and they talked about her mum in the reception and during the wedding and things like that. And it was all about her mum, and mum would love this. And like many people really arced up about that. They were really, what is this? You know, questioning, what on earth is she doing this for? Why would you set a plate? Why would you have a chair there? Your mother's dead. Like, are you crazy? And a lot of people do that. It's remembering that they were there.
Yes, yes.
You know, they were alive. They filled our life for this amount of time.
Yes.
They put energy into us. We put energy into them. And, you know, remembering isn't being crazy.
Right. Well, and isn't that, you know, when you look at the Mexican culture, the Day of the Dead, and, you know, yes. I remember when I was younger and I was watching a movie or something, it was probably a Disney movie about, yes. you know, the day. Oh, I remember watching this one scene where they were saying, this is the day where we have the chair at the table. Yeah. And it blew my mind as a little kid. That is amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
They keep living with this person. Like, that love doesn't end just because they're not in the physical body.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true.
And I remember I wanted to go back to when you were talking about the 5 stages of grief that most of us have heard. And I remember, you know, in grad school learning that, and I never felt connected to it.
No.
And then I was in a training where someone had said, I don't know how they knew this, but that the woman who created that never intended it to be considered 5 stages.
Yes.
And I thought that makes so much more sense, that they interweave and they're this and they're that, but just to give some identification to one of the most painful processes a person can experience.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But I also have, everybody knows the 5 stages, and they will say, I'm up to this stage, but I've gone back to anger. And it's like, yes, you have. Let me explain that. Yes. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross actually did it on terminally ill patients that she was working with. She noticed they went through these 5 stages. So, you know, it was actually terminally ill people or people dying that went through that. And yeah, so, and David Kessler has worked more on the 5 stages. He's got the 6th stage, which is meaning. So, which is beautiful. That's you know, the sharing of stories, and how do you honor your loved one?
Yes. And I think that kind of ties into the, you know, how what you were saying a few minutes ago is how we talk and teach about death.
Yes.
And, you know, I think we've all known the people who, you know, the pet goldfish dies. Yes. So we just get another one, and Fishy has been alive for 25 years at this point. Or how do I get the same hamster? And, you know, like you said,
Patrick, I did that with our youngest daughter. She had this fish called TJ, and she trained it like she'd get her fingers like this and it would go through and come out and go around, and she trained it to do different things.
That is amazing.
So, the fish died after 2 years.
No.
So I went, oh no, like I can't put it down the toilet. I'll bury it out the backyard. So I did it. I did the burial. Like now I would do it very differently. And then I went to the shop and I had to examine all these goldfish to make sure it looked like TJ.
Did you teach him? How would you even...
No, that was the problem. I said, so she came home from school and she did her, you know, like she usually does. And she went, Mum, TJ's not doing what he's meant to do. Is he sick? And I went, no. Like she was young. And I said, no, he had... he was feeling a bit sick today, and he told me he forgot what to do. So you just have to train him again.
Oh my God, that's so brilliant. You like didn't miss a beat.
No. I am the mother of fairy tales, seriously.
I will be reaching out to you and all of my parent friends whenever they need a story.
Oh, yes.
It's a new business, Cait. I'm seeing a vision.
I know. But I think that comes from my father. My father's Irish descent and very, very, storytelling. And sometimes I don't know whether I know the truth from my father or whether I've made that up or whether he's made it up or, it's just become truth.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes. And sometimes you just do the gentleness but then, I get asked that question, if a parent is, or a grandparent or a cousin or, yes, something. And some people, taking it into, it's like, there's no protection if there's violence involved, if there was something gruesome, if there was a hate crime. Like, we want to protect the kids, I think, as much as possible, but we also need to protect them and teach them this is the world we live in.
Yeah, that's right.
And for some of my parents that I've worked with who struggle with, how do I explain, or I don't want to talk about that, about death, I said, I'll say to them, but just have them watch The Lion King.
Yes.
The circle of life.
That's right.
Yep. And then you're planting those seeds of, okay, there's more to us than just this.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why, like, I want grief shared, like stories of grief shared, but start with, the dead bug on the side of the road, or the roadkill or something like that. So you see that bug was alive and it lived its life and now it's died, maybe under somebody's foot, but, it's dead on the side of the road or in the garden or whatever.
So Cait, I was just wondering, when you're working with someone with grief, how do you begin that journey with them? Because it's so unique for everyone.
Yeah, it is, yes. And probably the first 4 sessions is about what they've been through and how their friends and family are treating them. Mm-hmm. So they don't even know how they feel themselves. Mm-hmm. They just feel emptiness in general. There's the emptiness. And this is so private, I can't share it with anyone because they're telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. So it's processing how they're living in their world at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then starting to sort of weave in about how they feel about that person and what they feel. Because a lot of the time they feel like their friends are trying to get at them by saying, you have to do this. Mm-hmm. Or, there's quite a few people who have walked in on a parent who has died, like been visiting and the parent had died in between visits. And I don't know, and then you've got to ring emergency services like our 911 is 000, and they actually make you resuscitate this person.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the first thing they do. They say, oh, what do they look like, blah, blah, blah. And then we've got to go through that trauma as well of the resuscitation, and I want to change that so much, but I know they're covering, like, from a medical point of view, not all people know what death looks like either.
Right.
So I'm dealing with that quite a bit now. And
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. So, it's horrible, but, it happens. So this is in general what I'm dealing with now, that, you're talking through that trauma. So it's not even the grief right now. It's the trauma of what they had to do and then what happened afterwards. And then they want to remember that trauma rather than, how they helped and, they couldn't do anything different because they were actually coerced into doing it. Mm-hmm. So, and it's horrid. It's really, really horrid. Like, I know what a dead body looks like. And I could probably say to the call center, you know, I know what a dead body looks like, and I know this person is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm not going to do
I have to ask, so they they think there's a possibility the person
is alive. Yeah. So even like, I think there probably needs to be questions asked, like, what does the skin feel like? What color is it? All that sort of stuff. What do the eyes look like? So there's a check first before, you know, before they say, no, you have to start, because you're a general person, you don't know what a dead person looks like. But then for them to find out that they've been, you know, lying there for days or, you know, hours even. So yeah, that's really tough. I'd like that to change.
Yeah, that sounds really painful to go through. Like, as you said, trauma on top of trauma.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. So I think at that point, even they probably should have a therapist go in with the paramedics.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes. Yeah,
it's just a little like, hey, I'm here to hold your hand.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that's just so shocking to find, you know, mum dead, mum or dad, you know, and then to be told, to be really coerced, you know, you have to do this. Yeah. So I just want that to be known and changed.
That's really powerful. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Of just not even knowing. I mean, just different worlds, different cultures. Yeah. It's always interesting to learn and to grow and to share together.
Yeah.
And so when you know, one other area too that I wanted to jump into was the healing and the hope that is part of grief as well, which I know to some people they might say that sounds so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you've got to have hope to live, right? Because a lot of people, like, I wanted to die. I seriously wanted to die. You know, and many people do. And many, you know, if I didn't have another child in the back of my car, I probably would have died. You go into that depth of, not wanting to live. Oh, have you got Afterlife over there? The series by Ricky Gervais?
I don't know. Wait, I'm going to write it down.
Afterlife.
Okay. I don't know if anyone who's watching has watched it. Please message. Let me write it down.
Yeah.
What's it about?
It's amazing. About grief. And Ricky Gervais, I've seen Ricky Gervais was actually interviewed about putting it out there, because he did the first series, and his character is Tony, whose wife had a terminal illness, but we come in to when after she died, and he's really in deep grief. So, and it's just all the friends and how they cope with him. It's all the different faces of grief. You know, everyone is experiencing it differently, so differently. So, yeah, I just like, there's 3 series now. I didn't know whether people would want to laugh at grief, because it's like this roller coaster of emotion, which is what grief is. You know, sometimes grief is really, really sad. Like you don't look sad all the time. And that's why I think people think, oh, you're over it now.
Yes.
And
now we can have fun again. Now we can go shopping. Now we can talk about having more kids, or when are you going to date again? Or when are you going to sell the house? Like,
Oh, yes. And so many people are pushed into doing that stuff before they're ready. And I really want them to process, you know, because some people might sell the house straight away and really miss being in there, you know, walking into the kitchen and seeing their loved one there, their partner or their child sitting, you know, at the bench, the kitchen counter, and having a chat about their day. So, so this Afterlife is just a story about a man and his dog, wife who's died, and how everybody in this little community, a little village, experiences him. So because and their own grief. So it's just wonderful. You laugh.
I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, you laugh.
I love good recommendations.
Oh, it's just so. Just have 5 boxes of tissues.
Okay, which I normally have as a counselor.
Yes. But it's
I should have stock in tissues.
Yeah, exactly. I know. We should all.
I remember before COVID, when I was seeing people in my office, there's a couple times where people would be using them. It would be like the last one. It's like, I don't even know what to do. Wait a minute, I'll run to the store. Like, you just feel awful.
Yes.
Like, don't run out of tissues. Don't run out of tissues.
No, that's right. I have a cupboard full of tissues.
Yes, I did after that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, because I'm a crier, I'm highly emotional. Like, I used to be called the drama queen. That was that was my thing, the drama queen, Oh, she gets so upset about everything. Everything's such an ordeal. But I really wear that now with pride. I am a drama queen. I am very sensitive. I used to hate being called sensitive and all that sort of stuff. It used to feel like a weakness for me, but now it's my superpower. It's my strength.
And you also, I think, know when someone's using that, it's because they can't handle their own pain.
Definitely.
So they're going to project onto us. And because I've been called things like that too, or because I show emotion, especially, being a man that shows emotion, that questions, all of that jazz.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not taking that on. I'm not taking that on.
No, that's right. Well, you've got to be strong, right? And, my husband, I didn't see him cry at all for until maybe 2004, 2005. We were actually sitting with a friend who is a what is he? He's a cameraman for the news channels.
Oh, okay.
And he sees horrific things. And they were talking about a child who had died. And then my husband started to share the story of our children with him. And my husband cried. And I thought, oh my God, this is so precious, like seeing this interaction. Mm-hmm. And, and then it's sort of because we talked about our loss, but we didn't feel our loss with one another because we needed to stay strong for one another.
Yes, and move on and
that's
hold
right.
the fort. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's so important of how different men and women are allowed to grieve or process, and those stipulations of the rigidity for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And see, I have a lot of my practice is men. I see a lot of men, and they're very sensitive, and they really can't hold it in any longer because they tell me that they're extremely angry all the time, but they want to be sad, so it's this anger thing with the sadness and the grief, all the grief underneath.
And just like you're saying, trying to live up to that, I have to be a man and be strong, and I'm not supposed to. And yours okay. Sadness isn't acceptable.
Yes. Yeah. Like be a man, or like that thing.
I don't know who came up with that phrase, but they
Victorians, I think.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Be a man, like the woman's at home sewing and taking care of the, all the servants. So
it doesn't fit today, but I think that's part of our work too, is learning and sharing. It's okay. We're we're human.
Yeah.
We're human.
Yes.
And
that's right.
We're all going to feel things differently. And one of the things that when I'm working with men, is what do I do? Like you, Patrick, you keep talking about these feelings. What do I do with them? Now that I'm feeling them, now that I'm aware of them.
Yes.
I'm like, well, congratulations.
I know.
Then they look at me.
cheer.
And I'm like, you acknowledge them.
Yes.
And you breathe.
Yes.
And then you're going to know what to do with them. I can't tell you what to do with them.
Yeah.
But you just see they were never taught.
That's right. Yeah, because you fall over. Get up. Stop crying.
Be a big boy.
Be a big boy. Yeah. Put on your big boy pants is a big saying over here. It's like, no, you've got to learn to regulate, and know that you're hurt as well. So, yeah, but that, when you talk about that, realizing that they have feelings, I love especially watching a man in opposite me going, now what? Like, what do I do now? Like, I've got all these feelings now. What?
I'm sorry, we're out of time for today. I'll see. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
And you know what? It's always the last 5 minutes.
Yes. There are some tissues. I don't know.
That's right.
There's a little therapeutic humor there, folks. Just like, let the scene. Sometimes or sometimes they ask something, you need that moment to be like, this is so profound and so big. Yes. I don't want to rush this.
Yes.
I don't want to do doorknob therapy. I want to just take this down.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what's set up in the first session, actually, that this is the time, this is your time. And if something comes up right at the end, we need to honor that. Mm-hmm. We need to take the time for whatever has come up. So, so then they can process through that as well for, while they're away from you or me.
Right.
Yeah. And then come back and talk about it.
And I love that of being able to, like you said, have those 4 sessions. And, sometimes I see in different therapy groups of, the question is, my client just experienced something traumatic. How do I get them? Like, how do I fix this?
Yes.
And it just hurts my heart of you listen, like, they can't process it because they're still in shock.
Yes, that's
right.
They
don't have to get over. So even in like the therapy world, sometimes we see that of what is the rush? What are we so afraid of?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, but also, see, I work mainly long-term with people. I think like 10 to 15 years is a normal thing for me because I'm a transactional analyst as well. Okay. So, yeah.
We'll have to have you back on to talk. Oh, see, well, next show, let's go. I just want to know more. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
But I believe, in really deep processing and things, you do things now that you were taught when you were young.
Right.
And, it's all about that. But I do short term as well.
Right.
If people just want to go, okay, it's all about my grief. Okay, let's just unpack grief.
Yeah. And you also just launched a new product, correct? To help people with grief?
Which one?
I don't know. How many? Just talk about it.
Well, I'm doing stuff so much at the moment because I've got my affirmation cards and my gratitude cards.
Yes, you just came out with those, right?
Yes, that's right.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about those or whatever else you're working on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you. And I've got the journal as well that goes with that.
Yes.
So I'll tell you about these girls. These are my granddaughters.
Oh.
And this is my 16-year-old. This is my 14-year-old granddaughter.
They're beautiful.
And you should see, I had a beautiful graphic artist do this, and she's done such a good job. If you see these girls in public, you will recognize them from these. So
I'm sure they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
The youngest one, she's the green one, she's 14, and she's very private. She doesn't like, anyone knowing about her or anything. And I asked the eldest one, and she said, oh, of course, Grandma, I'll do that. I'd love to. And then I said to the younger one, would you like to as well? Because I've got the affirmation and gratitude. And she went, oh, yes, I'll be famous. And I thought, wow, that's interesting.
Well, she's now known in New York, so she's international.
Exactly, yes.
You can tell her that.
Well,
so you're known in New York now.
Yeah,
so.
And they watch everything I do too, which is awesome. Yeah, they're really.
They must be so proud of you.
Oh, but I'm so proud of them. They're amazing. Like all our children and grandchildren are amazing people, and my son-in-law as well. You know, we love him.
So can anyone order these cards, Cait? Or
well, do you know what? I've only got them in Australia at the moment.
Well, we're gonna have to change that. Excuse me.
I know. I'll put it out to the world. I'll get my web person to put it out to the world. I was just because it's actually the postage that really does it. You know, they're expensive to make, but then you put the postage on top, it's sort of double. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just complaining about the postal system. But, you know, but, yeah, I actually started these because of one of my teenage clients who had a mentally ill mum. And I gave, you know, we talked about affirmations and gratitude, and she'd lost herself in her mum. Mm-hmm. And so a way of sort of getting her into her own self was looking for the gratitude, you know, what is she grateful for in her day, rather than saying, oh, mum, you know, she talked about mum a lot. And she, like, she's given me permission to share this story because I share it everywhere I go, but she gave me the permission to share it because she's really proud that my creativity came from her. Mm. So, and she's an artist herself. She's a brilliant, she's going into university this year as well.
Wow.
Which is amazing. So, yeah, they started from her, and I just used to support her with a gratitude and an affirmation, like a question about what she's grateful for today. Look for something, you know, where you will see joy in the world, or a spark of something. And they became very, very ambiguous things, which she really loved, because then she could write about it. So that's why the journal came about too, because then of a night she would recall her day in a more grateful, affirming day for her, you know, that she was in the world, not that she had to be a certain way for her mum.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It must be life-changing.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. She's just doing so well now. Really, really well. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations. Yeah. That's amazing to launch that beautiful product.
Yeah.
So if people ever wanted to connect with you or chat with you, how would they be able to do that?
Well, right now I have a full book. I'm fully booked.
Okay.
But I'm hoping for March. My aim is March, that I have an online workshop going that's 3 months.
Oh wow.
I'm in the process of building that, writing a book and building that at the same time.
Of course.
So yeah. You know.
Well, and they can follow you on social media, and they can see, you know, I find that is really helpful. And if people want to, you know, it's on my stuff, they can find you that way. You know, I think there's such a dark side of social media, and that it affects the mental health and everything. And, you know, finding people like yourself, it's like it brings the light and the hope of, this is when I open my phone, this is what I want to see. I want to see the love and the hope and the resiliency and the encouragement of, let's get going.
That's right. Yeah. And I've got a YouTube channel too that I'm sort of starting to populate now. I have conversations with Cait that I might have to interview you on.
Yeah, I love it. Yes.
So yeah, and no, I can't remember when I started that, but I started it to sort of let people know that there's other people out there dealing with their grief, but also that there's other people out there helping people, that it isn't all, you know. I found a lot of unkindness in the world. And I really want to spread the kindness, because I think, you know, we've got the negative bias, and, you know, you'll watch a train crash rather than, you know, go to a beautiful garden. And, you know, and I think the world has been filled with darkness of, you know, reporting every second, like we've got news 24/7 of these are the numbers, you know, these are the deaths. And in the world, like, we get all the world numbers, like we know your numbers, and our numbers seem ridiculously small compared to everywhere else in the world of COVID deaths. I mean, I'm talking about, and COVID. So, you know, I just think we need to focus on something more, like, you know, like you've got Friday Night Feels, which I absolutely love. So, you know, and there just needs to be like sparks of brightness and kindness and sharing and love, because I think, you know, the world it's changing, and we need to learn to change with it and not fight against it as well.
Oh, I love that. So one last question as we wind down for tonight is, if you could give one piece of advice to the people that are watching or listening, what would you want them to walk away with?
Gosh, do you know, I knew this question was coming, and I thought, I'm going to think of something really amazing for this. Sure. Okay, this is my thoughts right this second. I think it's really important to, you know, slow down your world and be okay and be patient with your world and other people's worlds. And I think kindness is important. Hope, look for the kindness, because, you know, there's all my coffee shops I go to are kind people. They are so, and it's like a community. It's like a little village going there. You know, my husband and I went to Percy Plunkett in Penrith this morning, just an ad, and we know everybody. We know all the servers there, and Adam introduced us to a new server, and the server was giving all his, you know, what they're taught to do, and Adam just said, oh, they practically work here, they know what they want. So it's just lovely, you know?
But you did a good job. You did a good job.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Those moments are priceless.
Because Phil is the owner, and he treats his employees like family. And the same with all the other places that we go to. It's like they treat people like family. And I think because we're going through something so terrible universally, that we need to treat each other more kindly, more generously, and more like family, because we're all connected. So,
that's beautiful.
That's my short answer.
I love it. And people, I just want to let you know, people were messaging that they have seen that show. I guess it's on season 3. So it's very powerful, very helpful. So I appreciate the recommendation.
So and I binged it. Like, I binged the first series, then waited for the second series, and then the third series, you know, there's no more coming, but I binged everyone as soon as they came out. So
it sounds wonderful. Well, Cait, thank you so much. I was so looking forward to it. It was such a lovely way to end a busy week, and I'm so appreciative of everything you're doing.
Thank you so much,
amazing.
Patrick.
And
I'm so glad we met virtually. I can't wait to actually fly and meet you.
I know. I've never been to Australia. It's on my bucket list now.
Oh, well, come here. Yes.
Yeah, I would love to. I was on a tour once, and there was this lovely family from Australia.
Yeah.
And we connected, you know, and we're still in Facebook. And there was one day where she was traveling, and she sent me this picture of, she was walking the street, and all of a sudden this family of kangaroos went down the street. I'm like, this is amazing.
We've got kangaroos in Penrith too. Yeah.
on my bucket list. We'll do a live Friday Night Feels from
Penrith.
Saturday. We'll work it out.
I'll go for a walk down where the kangaroos are, and
and
hopefully they're there. Yeah.
Well, and I hope you come back to Friday Night Feels. You're always welcome.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's watching and supports Friday Night Feels, whether the video, on the podcast, or on YouTube, and we appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Everyone, have a beautiful weekend and take care.
Exciting. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.